Guys, I'm very pleased to be sitting down with Chad Kapper today. He is the wizard behind the Rotor Riot phenomenon. Chad, thank you for sitting down with us today. Is it all right if we ask you a couple of questions?
Absolutely. Thank you, Shawn.
Excellent, excellent. Chad, I like to get a feel for somebody by getting a little bit of their background history. How old are you, Chad?
I am 43 and a
Okay.
half.
And a half. Good deal. I'm right behind you. And I'll tell you, I find it very interesting. A lot of our target audience is our age. We're reliving our second childhood, and we're doing it through FPV.
Yes, I've noticed that. I think a lot of people, they have their first round and then they have kids and they settle down and then they're looking for a little bit of excitement. And it's a safe way to go out and adventure.
Absolutely. Not many of us can hop on the half pipe anymore, but it's just as easy to go ahead and strap on the goggles and do a couple of aero maneuvers, that's for certain. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Canton, Ohio.
Canton, Ohio. Is it
Well, Massillon, Ohio, but nobody knows where that is.
kind of a suburban area?
Yeah, it's very suburban. It's actually the Massillon, Ohio area, which is it's just a little suburb. It's about an hour south of Cleveland.
Chad, what did you find yourself doing when you were growing up? What occupied the majority of your time?
Actually, I spent a lot of time back in the woods and riding my bike. I mean, that was probably the majority of my friend time. And then I also got into computers very early. We didn't have a lot of money, so I, I saved up for. I'm trying to think of how I convinced my mom to do this, but I wanted an Atari 800 XL computer, had 64K of RAM. And I said, I don't care if I don't get anything for the next 2 Christmases. I want this. And I was just completely obsessed with having my own personal computer. And it was $199, which it might as well have been, $5,000. And I did get it. She saved and she made it happen. And I was very thankful because most of my toys and other things came from garage sales. So to be able to get that was just a huge deal for me. So after that, I spent a lot of time in my room learning to program BASIC and, learn about computers. And that's probably like 1983, 84, somewhere around there.
About the same time I was getting my Commodore 64. I definitely
Yep.
can relate.
Yeah, that was the big competitor. For whatever reason, I was an Atari fan. I know a lot of other people were, getting on the Commodore, and I don't know why I was attracted to Atari, but it probably doesn't matter.
That was about the same time bulletin boards were popping up here and there. The Mighty Mo 300 baud modem. I tell you, that was pretty much the genesis of the internet right there. I remember
yeah.
a couple of my friends ran little bulletin board systems where you could go direct dial, download games and things like that. I think for a
Yeah,
lot of us in our age bracket, both being outside but making that transition to computers, I think that's a background story for a lot of us.
Oh, yeah.
We come from the generation where mom said, get out and play. Don't be inside, go outside and play. And it was actually a punishment. I was talking to somebody about this a couple of days ago where it was actually a punishment for us to be inside.
Right.
So we had that grounding in the outdoors of going out and playing with our friends till the wee hours of the morning. And then we started to see this amazing technology come forth. And I think that helped us be a little bit more grounded. And it's something that the successive generations haven't necessarily seen, because they're starting to get more and more into the technology and stepping a little bit away from the outside. And honestly, I think FPV is bringing us back outside. Think of how many kids are getting off the couch. They're not playing Minecraft anymore. They're going outside. They're tuning their quads. And they get bit by that FPV bug. And after that, it starts to grow and grow. And it's like they wouldn't go out in bad weather before. But it's like, okay, I got 2 batteries. I got a storm coming in. I'm going to go out and fly 2 packs. And we see ourselves pushing back into the outdoors. Do you agree with that?
I think so. I hadn't really thought of it like that. But what I see is it's a good balance, because you spend, half the time building or repairing and the other half out flying or with friends. So I think it's, now that you've brought it up, I think it's a natural segue. I think one of the observations I've made in the different generations are it's really interesting, because I always saw technology as, wow, this is the way everybody's moving, and in the future everybody will know how to program and all of this. But I think our generation is very unique in the sense that it's the generation that had to learn to get into the nuts and bolts of programming and things like that. And now I think, and I'm going to sound like an old man, but most kids don't really know how to function beyond the user interface. Like, they know how to use it very well. It's computers and any kind of computerized technology. It's become so refined that people don't have to dig in and type commands like load or run. They just click on things and it happens. So it's really interesting. It makes me wonder if that, if how that's changing the dynamic of things.
Absolutely. I can certainly see what you're saying. The graphic user interface was one of the greatest things and one of the worst things, because it does give that ability to separate yourself from the load, 8, 1 from Commodore days to just point and click with the mouse. It makes it much easier. It makes it a lot more approachable. But at the same token, people don't understand the minutia that goes in behind it, all of the programming languages and things like that. There's a lot that goes on behind that graphic user interface, and people are getting separated from that. And I definitely can agree with you where FPV is making us become programmers again.
Oh yeah, I think so. But it's going to smooth back out, and there will be that generation and that refinement again, I'm sure. And quite frankly, maybe it's because I'm getting older, I'll be glad for that, because right now everybody's getting, a flight controller board is a little circuit board that you get in a package with no documentation, and it's fun at first, but I think when you get into flying, you want to be able to also have the option of just going out and flying something great. And, while the ready-to-fly packages are coming up and becoming more common, they're not performing like, the home-built ones. But I think we're gonna reach that happy medium where you can have enough, programming and tinkering as you might want, but you also get the ability to not spend all weekend building or repairing, and that's the worst, when the weather's great and you can't fly because you're fixing something or trying to troubleshoot while your PWM3 signal is not talking to your ESC.
Absolutely, and it's guys like Boris B. and the folks that are working behind the scenes that have made all of these innovations with the programming that goes into the algorithms and whatnot, that's really made it a lot easier for us. And just in the last year, the tuning advancements are absolutely amazing. I mean, if you go back to like Clean Flight 1.0 and try to tune that as opposed to Beta Flight 3.0, which I'm currently using, it's a world of difference. And the proof is definitely in the pudding. The end result, we see a lot faster PID tuning, and we see a lot more locked-in craft. And those two things together are crucial for creating new pilots. If it's easy and approachable, it makes it much more advantageous, and it makes it a lot more fun. Like you said.
And I think what I'm poorly articulating is what I'm trying to say. There's a term that I've used for years in 3D animation. It's called, I don't even know where the term came from, but varying level of detail. And what that is, it allows you to put the detail where needed or desired, but then you have lower detail where it's not important. And I think if we took that approach with this, because some people like to spend 80% of their time building or tweaking, but a lot of people like to spend 80% of their time flying. So if each person's experience can be tailored to what suits them, I think then that would be the ultimate.
What were some of your favorite childhood shows growing up?
Oh, let's see. Definitely cartoons. I was a Saturday morning kid. I would get up at the first cartoon and watch cartoons for it felt like 6 hours straight. But aside from that, Gilligan's Island, MacGyver, The Fall Guy. I mean, I was into all of them. I was such an 80s kid.
Well, let me ask you. You mentioned MacGyver, and I just noticed that they are doing a reboot of MacGyver. As
Yes.
as a director, what is your thoughts on all of these reboots? Is it people not coming up with ideas, or is it possibly that all the stories have been told and all of the variations are running dry?
Well, I think I honestly don't have a problem with the concept of a reboot. I think the best one ever was probably 15, 20 years ago. It was the Brady Bunch. When they did the Brady Bunch movie, that was the reboot.
Oh yeah.
That was amazing because they took that satirical approach, and it was just spot on in my opinion, as far as they kept the essence of it, but it didn't take itself so seriously that you couldn't laugh. It was almost like going down memory lane, but in a more, I guess, fun. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but I absolutely loved it. They tried it with the Dukes of Hazzard, which I think didn't work. So I just kind of take it case for case and look at it. But like I said, as far as the concept, I don't have a problem with it. I just think it's a very touchy subject or kind of thing to do. It's very difficult to do it right. So we'll see.
There's a lot of diehard fans, and it's hard to please everybody. That's
Oh
certainly
yeah.
the case.
Another one more recent that they did an exceptional job was 21 Jump Street.
I'm gonna have to check that one out.
Now, it's not everybody's taste, but my wife and I really enjoyed it. We've watched it a couple times.
What movies captivated your imagination when you were growing up?
Oh, I can tell you my number one favorite movie of all time is Stand By Me. I think that movie was done exceptionally well. The actors that were chosen for those roles at that moment were perfect. I don't think they could have gotten four better child actors at the time. And the story structure itself, I mean, was flawless. And that to me is a model movie. So that's definitely one of my favorites. Back to the Future was probably, number two. And then, during the 80s and during my childhood, I was definitely, Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme,
Oh yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, I watched all the action films. I watched Total Recall like 20 times.
And it never got old.
No, no. And it's hilarious. It's comical to watch now. But at the time, it was just amazing.
Now you mentioned Stand By Me. Have you read King's short story The Body?
Actually, I'm aware of it, and I, believe it or not, have not, just because I'm not much of a reader. I read scripts, and I'm a very avid movie watcher. I have a hard time reading. I'm like a lot of those people that I can't get halfway through a page, and my mind is drifting, and I'll read that same page 10 times, and it just gets very frustrating. So I have to be super engaged into reading something.
That's very interesting. I find myself on both sides of the spectrum. I try to read as much as I watch movies because sometimes reading for me is more cerebral. For me to paint the picture myself is just as enjoying as watching it unfold on the screen.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think for me, what people like about reading is almost what I don't like about it. I like to create my own world, or I like to be, kind of both ends of the spectrum. I like it to be completely painted. So I want to watch a movie and see exactly what the vision of that creator's mind had, or I want to create it myself. But reading a book, I don't take the written cues as well. It's hard for me when I'm reading it to picture it because I'm always putting my own spin on it. That's why I like scripts. Scripts are meant for directors to look at and paint their own vision of it. That's why scripts they don't tell you necessarily what people are feeling. It's a script is written to show action and what the physical world is seeing. But then all the subtext and that, maybe that's what I'm talking about. And I'm sorry, it took me a little bit to get there, but I think it's that I'm a character person, and I like to really understand the characters and their motivations. And I think there's so much in, facial reactions and the way people deliver their lines that in a book it's hard for me to see that or get that.
I can definitely relate to that. Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, and that's why you always see videos from me, because I'm a very visual person.
And you want the completed project or you want to do it yourself? There is no middle line.
I guess not. I hadn't really thought about it till just now.
Well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. When people have a very strong direction and a very strong vision, it can sometimes be difficult to take cues from somebody else because you already see it in your mind's eye as to how it's supposed to occur.
I think, you know what? Yeah, and I've always struggled with that when people say, because I've had people tell me, Chad, you have a really strong vision. I don't know what that means because I don't see the completed product in my head, but I do have the feeling. I have the tone, and what I see is a feeling, like an approach, an end goal of what has happened, but I don't know exactly what it looks like. And along the way, we find what it looks like. Like with Rotor Riot, I knew we wanted this sincere look into the FPV world, but I didn't know exactly what it looked like because I'm not creating it, but I had a vision to find it. So I don't know how to describe that, but that's how my mind works, is I want to find the essence of something. And I think, the style and approach that you go about it is where the flair and the creativity comes in.
You want to boil it down to its essence, and then you want to grow it from there in an organic manner.
Absolutely, yes. And it's, I don't choose the colors. I don't choose the shapes, and I'm using this metaphorically, of course, but I just, go on an adventure, and I feel like I'm picking up these gemstones along the way. And at the end, you have this creation, and it's sparkly and, really awesome. And, but along the way, everybody's helping and everybody's adding to it, and they're throwing in ideas. And, so I think the only thing I can really take credit for is the forward movement, because the creativity and the ideas, it comes from the collaboration.
The story's already there. You're just bringing
it together. Find it. Yeah, it's like a vein of gold. You get a little piece of it, and you're like, there's something there. So that's probably the best way to describe it. So I find a little vein of gold, and I know there's the mother lode somewhere, but I also know it's going to take a lot of work, and it's not going to be easy, and it's going to take you this way, and then you think it's there, and then it's going to go this way, and and that's the fun part. That's the adventure.
It's prospecting.
Absolutely.
On behalf of the flight crew, thank you for flying with us, and have a pleasant day.